For decades, the rule was simple. If it flies, radar sees it. Bigger the bomber, bigger the blip. Then a bat-shaped silhouette with the wingspan of a 737 started appearing on scopes no larger than a sparrow. $2 billion a copy, just 21 ever built, and one question that still haunts every adversary who ever invested in an air defense network. If we couldn't find it 30 years ago, can we find it tonight? That question is not hypothetical. It is the daily reality of the B-2 Spirit, a 30-year-old flying wing that still outpaces every defensive network designed to stop it. Only 21 were ever built. Each costs more than its weight in gold, and in an era of hypersonics and AI-driven warfare, this Cold War ghost remains America's deadliest strategic asset. Here is why. To understand why this aircraft still haunts the world's most advanced air defenses, you have to go back to the late 1970s, when the Cold War was at its most paranoid. The Soviet Union had spent a fortune building a wall of radar, surface-to-air missiles, and interceptors designed to shred any American bomber that entered its airspace. The Pentagon's answer was the Advanced Technology Bomber, a black program so secret that even Congress didn't know its full scope. The goal was not incremental improvement. It was to build something that, by every known law of physics, should not exist. A heavy strategic bomber with the radar signature not of another aircraft, but of an insect. The engineering challenge was staggering. Traditional aircraft reflect radar energy straight back to its source. The design team at Northrop, led by a handful of aerodynamicists who had studied the work of a reclusive German engineer, realized they needed a shape with no flat surfaces, no tail, no fuselage that could create a clean return. The solution was a pure flying wing. Every curve and angle computer modeled using then classified algorithms that could predict how radio waves would scatter. Then came the materials. Engineers buried the engines deep inside the body, channeling exhaust through S-shaped ducts that cooled and masked the heat signature before it could escape. The skin was coated in a radar-absorbent material so sensitive that a simple scratch could compromise the jet's invisibility. The first prototype rolled out of a hangar in Palmdale, California in November of 1988, under armed guard and a massive tent to block Soviet satellites. When the world finally saw it, the reaction was shock. A bat-winged Phantom with a wingspan wider than a 737, yet no tail, no vertical stabilizers, nothing that should allow it to fly. But it flew. And the real shock was not its shape. It was the promise. This aircraft, flown by a two-person crew, could take off from Missouri, penetrate the most lethal air defenses on Earth, deliver conventional or nuclear weapons with pinpoint accuracy, and return home without ever being seen. The Air Force originally wanted 132 of them. They got 21. The Berlin Wall fell, the Soviet Union collapsed, and a $1 billion per plane stealth bomber suddenly looked like a relic of a war that never happened. But that is where the story gets dangerous. Because while Washington debated its relevance, the B-2 quietly proved something far more terrifying. It proved that the rules of warfare had already changed, and no one had told the rest of the world. The first real test came in March of 1999, over a country most Americans could not find on a map, Kosovo, and what happened there revealed a capability so devastating. It rewrote every assumption about air power in a single night. On the night of March 24, 1999, two B-2s lifted off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Their target was a network of hardened Serbian command bunkers and air defenses 6,000 miles away. The mission would take over 31 hours round trip, with multiple aerial refuelings. And it would make history, because these were the first combat strikes ever flown by a stealth strategic bomber. The bombs were JDAMs, Joint Direct Attack Munitions, standard iron bombs fitted with GP's guidance kits. Not exotic, not experimental, but when released from an invisible platform at altitude, they became surgical. Every target was struck, every bomber returned. And the unit responsible, the 509th Bomb Wing, had just proved something that every Air Force on the planet feared was true. In the first 8 weeks of the bombing campaign, B-2s flew just 1% of the total sorties over Kosovo, yet they destroyed 33% of all Serbian targets during that period. One aircraft, one crew, One sortie, doing the work of entire squadrons of conventional jets. An official Air Force analysis later concluded something even more staggering. Two B-2s armed with precision weaponry can replace 75 conventional attack aircraft and their entire supporting fleet of tankers, electronic warfare jets, and fighter escorts. That is not evolution. That is collapse of the cost-to-effect ratio that built modern air warfare. So what makes that possible? The answer is not just the stealth coating or the flying wing shape. It is the combination of invisibility and raw destruction. Because while the B-2 disappears from radar screens, it carries a payload that terrifies even hardened generals. 40,000 pounds of ordnance. In its 2 internal bays, it can carry up to 16 nuclear gravity bombs, or 80 500-pound JDAMs, or 2 of the largest conventional bombs ever built. The B-57 massive ordnance penetrator, each weighing 30,000 pounds, designed to bury itself 60 feet into reinforced concrete before detonating. No other aircraft in the American inventory can carry a single mop, let alone 2, and reach targets deep inside enemy territory without a roar of escorts. This capability alone has shaped the Pentagon's plans for striking hidden nuclear facilities and deeply buried command centers for 2 decades. But the destructive power that truly resets strategic calculus is not conventional. It is the B-2's role as the invisible leg of America's nuclear triad. While ballistic missile submarines and intercontinental missiles each guarantee retaliation, only the B-2 can penetrate an air defense network, verify a target with human eyes, and deliver a B-83 nuclear bomb with the accuracy of a rifle shot, and then disappear again. That creates a permanent, unanswerable question for any adversary. Is the sky empty, or is it already over your head? And for 30 years, that uncertainty has worked exactly as designed. From Kosovo to Iraq to Libya to the precision strikes in Yemen just last year, the B-2 has been used sparingly, each mission a calculated message. But now, only 20 remain, and the future is already being tested in secret above the Nevada desert. The problem is, the B-2 fleet is not just small, it is fragile in ways few outside the military truly understand. Its radar-absorbent skin is so sensitive that moisture, a scratch from a maintenance tool, or even heavy rain can compromise its signature. Each aircraft requires a climate-controlled hangar and roughly 120 hours of maintenance for every single flight hour. The cost per flying hour sits around $135,000. For comparison, that is more than double the F-22 Raptor's operating cost. When only 20 jets exist, every grounded airframe is a strategic gap. Losing one to an accident, as happened in 2008 when a B-2 crashed on takeoff in Guam, removes 5% of the nation's penetrating bomber force in an instant. But here is what really keeps planners awake at night. The B-2 was designed to defeat the air defense radars of the 1980s. Those systems relied on high-frequency bands that the flying wing shape could scatter and absorb. Today, adversaries are fielding a new generation of sensors, low-frequency over-the-horizon radars, networked air defense command systems, and AI-driven sensor fusion that pieces together faint clues from multiple sources. A single low-frequency radar may not lock onto a B-2, but it can see something. A ghost, a flicker, and when you connect that ghost across a web of satellites, ground stations, and infrared trackers, you start to shrink the invisibility bubble. The Pentagon knows this, which is why, even as the Spirit continues to fly combat missions into denied airspace, its successor has been racing through development faster than anyone predicted. In the first half of 2026, the B-21 Raider completed a critical developmental flight test campaign in just 73 days. The Air Force had planned for 180. That acceleration means the software, the coatings, the engine integration were far more mature than typical for a next-generation stealth platform at this stage. The B-21 shares the flying wing silhouette of its predecessor, but it incorporates a quarter-century of material science advances, more deeply recessed engine inlets, and a digital engineering architecture that allows rapid upgrades. The plan is to field a fleet of at least 100 Raiders, gradually replacing both the B-2 Spirit and the B-1 Lancer, with initial operational aircraft reaching Ellsworth Air Force Base by 2027. But that timeline leaves a gap. For the next several years, the 20 remaining Spirits are still the tip of the spear. They are the only aircraft that can penetrate the most defended airspace with a massive payload and return, and they are being used. In October of 2024, B-2s struck hardened underground Houthi targets in Yemen, a mission that required a round trip from Missouri. Every sortie is a calculation. Is the target worth exposing a $2 billion national asset that can never be replaced? The B-2 Spirit has held the line for over 30 years, a weapon from the Cold War that became the defining strategic platform of every conflict since. But the era of uncontested stealth is ending. What America builds right now will determine who controls the skies of the Pacific and beyond for the next half-century, and the design is already flying. The B-21 Raider, the digital ghost that will inherit the Spirit's mission, is not merely a replacement. It is an admission that the question we opened with has a sharper edge today than it did in 1999. The answer is no longer a simple yes. Low-frequency radar networks and AI-driven sensor fusion can now detect anomalies that older systems would have filtered out as noise. The B-2 was designed to be invisible to a specific band of threats, and those threats have mutated. Yet, in the very years that its stealth envelope has been shrinking, the Air Force has done something quietly remarkable with the 20 remaining Spirits. It has upgraded their minds. The B-2 now flies with a new defensive management system, advanced beyond line of sight communication suites, and a radar-absorbent skin treatment reformulated to counter modern threats. These jets, some of which have been flying for over 3 decades, have received software patches that let them integrate real-time data from satellites and F-35 sensor networks, effectively borrowing invisibility from an entire ecosystem of stealth platforms. The bat-winged bomber is no longer flying alone into the dark. It is now the center of a mesh with loyal wingmen, not yet unmanned drones, but data streams that paint a picture of threats long before the Spirit's own sensors would see them. That leads to the capability that still shocks most. Not speed, not payload, not even invisibility. It is strategic ambiguity, the permanent uncertainty injected into every potential adversary's calculus. When a B-2 takes off from Missouri, no one outside the chain of command knows where it is going, or why, or whether the bombs inside are conventional or nuclear. That doubt compresses decision timelines, forces adversaries to posture defensively, and has, on multiple occasions, de-escalated crises before they became wars. 2 B-2s can hold at risk more targets than an entire carrier strike group, without a single refueling footprint visible on open-source satellite imagery. That asymmetry is why, for all the hand-wringing about obsolescence, the Spirit was the only platform chosen to strike the deepest Houthi bunkers in 2024. No other aircraft could carry the weapon, survive the air defenses, and deliver the message. Yet there is a detail about that mission that almost no one knows. The aircraft that dropped those bombs was older than both its pilots. Its airframe had absorbed 3 decades of thermal cycles, humidity exposure, and the slow, relentless degradation of flying at the edge of material science. The fact it was still mission capable, still invisible enough, still precise enough to put a 30,000-pound penetrator through a hardened mountain facility is not a triumph of engineering alone. It is a monument to the maintenance crews who spend over 100 hours on the ground for every hour the jet spends in the air. The B-2 was supposed to be retired by now. Instead, it is flying alongside the prototype of its own replacement, a ghost mentoring its successor. And that successor, the B-21, is accelerating toward an operational force faster than any bomber program in modern history. So the real shock is not that a 30-year-old aircraft still dominates. It is that the very concept of dominance has changed, and the Spirit never stopped adapting. The flying wing that was born in the Cold War has outlived the empire it was designed to destroy, and is now teaching a new generation how to fight wars that have not yet been imagined. But what happens when the last B-2 is rolled into a hangar for the final time? And what secret capability did the Air Force embed in its successor that even now remains classified? That secret capability is not just a technology, it is a philosophy. The idea that the greatest weapon is not the one your enemy fears, but the one they do not know, exists. The B-2 Spirit taught the world that a single bomber could paralyze an entire nation's decision-making without ever firing a shot. It proved that stealth is not merely a shape or a coating. It is a form of psychological warfare that compresses time and erodes certainty. Now, with its successor entering service at a pace that startled even its own program managers, that philosophy is being carried forward into an era of AI-driven warfare and hypersonic threats. The bat-winged silhouette will vanish from the skies eventually. But the question it forced onto every adversary, the permanent, unanswerable doubt, will not vanish with it. If you want to see the classified test flights and hidden capabilities of the B-21 Raider before anyone else, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The Ghost is evolving, and you will want to see what comes next.